The hardest person to leave is not the one who hurts you. It is the one you keep hoping will finally choose you. For years, I thought love meant endurance. I believed that if I stayed patient enough, if I forgave enough, if I gave enough of myself, one day the person I loved would look at everything I sacrificed and finally understand my worth. I was wrong, because sometimes the person you keep fighting for is the same person who slowly teaches you how to disappear. My name is Daniel Carter, and for most of my adult life, I was known as the man who never gave up. Friends admired my loyalty. My family called me strong, but nobody saw the truth. I was not strong. I was afraid. Afraid that walking away meant admitting I had wasted years of my life. Afraid that leaving meant accepting that the person I loved never loved me in the same way. And most of all, I was afraid that if I stopped chasing her, nobody would come looking for me. Her name was Emily. I met Emily when I was 26 years old. At that time, my life was simple. I worked a regular job, lived in a small apartment, and spent most evenings reading books about philosophy and human nature. I was not wealthy. I was not impressive. I was just a quiet man trying to build a peaceful life. Then Emily walked into my world. She had a way of making ordinary moments feel meaningful. She laughed loudly. She dreamed endlessly. She could walk into a room full of strangers and somehow make everyone feel like they had known her for years. I was different. I was calm, reserved. I thought before I spoke. Where Emily was fire, I was silence. And somehow, those differences pulled us together. For the first few years, everything felt perfect. Emily would call me after a difficult day and say, "Daniel, I don't know what I would do without you." Those words became my weakness, because I built my identity around being needed. Whenever Emily was sad, I was there. Whenever she had problems, I solved them. Whenever she pushed me away, I waited. I told myself patience was love. I told myself understanding was love. I told myself that one day she would realize how much I cared. But slowly, something changed. The calls became shorter. The messages became colder. The effort became one-sided. At first, I ignored it. I found excuses for her. She's stressed. She's busy. She just needs time. I became an expert at explaining away the pain someone else caused me. That was the first lesson life was trying to teach me. A person can only hurt you repeatedly if you keep giving them permission. But I did not understand that yet. I still believed Emily was the exception. One night, I waited outside a restaurant for almost an hour. It was our anniversary. I had planned everything. I booked her favorite table. I bought the necklace she had looked at months before. I even wrote a letter telling her how grateful I was that she was in my life. But Emily never arrived. At 9:15 p.m., my phone finally rang. "Daniel." Her voice sounded distracted. "Emily, where are you?" There was silence. Then she said the words that I still remember. "Oh, I forgot." I felt my chest tighten. "You forgot our anniversary?" "Daniel, don't make this a big thing. I have been really busy." I looked around the restaurant. Couples were laughing. People were celebrating. And I was sitting alone at a table meant for two. "I waited for you," I said quietly. "I know," she replied. But there was no sadness in her voice. No guilt, just annoyance. "I'll make it up to you." Those words became a pattern. She would hurt me. I would forgive her. She would promise to change. And then everything would happen again. The strange thing about emotional pain is that the first time someone breaks your heart, you feel it completely. The second time, you feel confusion. The 10th time, you start blaming yourself. You begin asking questions like, am I asking for too much? Am I being too sensitive? Should I be more understanding? I slowly convinced myself that my needs were the problem. I stopped asking for attention because I didn't want to seem needy. I stopped expressing disappointment because I didn't want to create conflict. I became smaller just to make the relationship feel bigger. And that was the moment I started losing myself. Marcus Aurelius once wrote about the importance of controlling what belongs to us and releasing what does not. At that time, I misunderstood that idea. I thought controlling my emotions meant hiding my pain. I thought being stoic meant accepting everything silently. But true strength is not silently suffering. True strength is knowing what deserves your energy and what destroys your peace. I learned that lesson slowly, through nights where I stared at the ceiling wondering why I was not enough, through conversations where I apologized for things I did not do, through moments where I felt lonely while standing beside the person I loved. But the final warning came on a rainy evening in October. I remember because that was the night something inside me changed. Emily came home late. Again, I was sitting in the living room, not angry, not shouting, just tired. She dropped her bag near the door and looked at me. "Why are you sitting like that?" I looked at her. "For what?" She frowned. "Daniel, don't start." That sentence hurt more than any argument, because it showed me something. My feelings had become an inconvenience. "I just wanted to ask where you were." I said, "I was with friends." "Your friends?" She paused. "Yes." I noticed a hesitation, a small moment, a tiny crack. But sometimes the smallest cracks reveal the biggest truths. "Emily," I said, "are you happy with me?" She looked surprised. "What kind of question is that?" "An honest one." She sighed. "Daniel, I don't know why you always make everything so serious." And there it was, the truth hidden inside a simple sentence. I was not asking for too much. I was asking the wrong person. That night, Emily went to sleep without another conversation, and I stayed awake for hours, thinking about every moment I had ignored, every time I accepted less than I deserved, every time I came running back after promising myself I would stop. Then I realized something painful. Emily did not believe I would leave. Why would she? I had proven the opposite for years. No matter what happened, I always came back. And when someone knows you will always return, they stop fearing losing you. That night, I made a decision. Not an angry decision. Not a revenge decision. A quiet one, for the first time in years. I decided to stop chasing someone who was comfortable watching me walk behind them. But I did not know yet that leaving Emily would be the easiest part. The hardest part would be discovering who I was without her. The next morning, I woke up expecting to feel different. I thought making a decision would instantly remove the pain. I thought the moment I chose myself, everything inside me would become peaceful. But life does not work that way. A decision can change your direction, but it does not erase the wounds that made you choose that direction. I opened my eyes and looked at the empty space beside me. Emily was still asleep. For a few seconds, my mind went back to the old version of myself, the version that would reach over, touch her shoulder, and pretend everything was normal, the version that would ignore his own pain just to protect her comfort. But that morning I stayed still. I watched the person I loved sleeping peacefully while I carried years of silent disappointment. And for the first time, I asked myself a question I had avoided for too long. If I have to lose myself to keep someone, what exactly am I trying to save? I quietly got out of bed. I made coffee. I packed my things for work. And I left without saying anything. Not because I wanted to punish Emily. Not because I wanted her to chase me. I left because I needed to hear my own thoughts without her voice controlling them. For years, my life had been built around Emily's reactions. If Emily was happy, I felt successful. If Emily was upset, I felt like I had failed. I had given another person the power to decide how I felt about myself. And I did not even realize it. At work, my friend Michael noticed something was different. Michael had known me for almost 10 years. He was the kind of person who could recognize a problem before you admitted it yourself. During lunch, he looked at me and said, "Daniel." Something happened. I looked down at my food. "What makes you say that?" "Because usually when something bothers you, you pretend it doesn't." I smiled slightly. "Is that a bad thing?" Michael leaned back. "It depends." "On what?" "On whether you are being peaceful or just avoiding the truth." Those words stayed with me, because deep down I knew Michael was right. I had confused patience with weakness. I had confused forgiveness with accepting anything. I had confused love with losing myself. That evening when I returned home, Emily was waiting. She was sitting on the couch, her arms crossed. Her expression was confused. "Where were you this morning?" I placed my keys on the table. "Work." "You left without saying goodbye." Yes. She stared at me. Something about my answer bothered her. Not because she missed me, but because she was not used to me acting differently. Daniel, are you angry? I shook my head. No. Then what is this? I looked at her. This is me being honest. She laughed softly. Honest about what? About being tired. Her smile disappeared. Tired of what? I took a deep breath. Tired of feeling like I have to earn your attention. The room became quiet. For years, I had imagined this conversation. I imagined myself shouting. I imagined myself finally telling her everything she had done. But when the moment came, I was calm, and that surprised me, because anger is loud, but acceptance is quiet. Emily looked away. Daniel, I never asked you to do all those things. That sentence hurt, because it was true. She never asked me to sacrifice everything. I chose to, but another truth existed. Someone not forcing you to destroy yourself does not mean they should accept watching you do it. I know, I said. Then why are you blaming me? I'm not blaming you. Then what are you saying? I looked at her. I'm saying I forgot that my life belongs to me too. For a moment, I thought she understood. I thought maybe she would finally see the pain behind my silence. But instead, she said something I never expected. Are you leaving me? The question was simple, but the emotion behind it was complicated, because for the first time, Emily sounded afraid. I wanted to say yes. I wanted to tell her everything was over, but my heart was not ready. Love does not disappear because your mind finally understands the truth. The heart often arrives late. I don't know, I answered, and that was the honest truth. I did not know if I wanted to leave. I only knew I could not continue living the way I had been. The next few weeks were strange. Emily noticed a difference. I stopped asking where she was. I stopped checking my phone every few minutes. I stopped trying to fix every problem. And something unexpected happened. The less I chased, the more she noticed me. She started texting first. She started asking about my day. She started trying to spend time with me. At first, I felt happy. I thought maybe this was a change I had been waiting for. Maybe my silence finally made her realize my value. Maybe losing me scared her. But then I remembered something important. A person changing because they fear losing you is not always the same as a person changing because they understand your pain. There was a difference. One comes from love. The other comes from discomfort. And I was about to discover which one Emily was feeling. One night, Emily sat beside me. Daniel, I feel like you're different. I looked at her. I am. Do you still love me? That question hurt. Because even after everything, the answer was yes. I do. Then why are you acting like you don't care? I looked at the floor. Because caring about someone should not mean abandoning myself. She became quiet. Then she whispered, I never thought you would actually walk away. Those words were like a key unlocking something inside me, because they confirmed what I had always felt. Emily was comfortable with my presence. She was comfortable with my forgiveness. She was comfortable knowing that no matter how far she pushed me, I would return. And suddenly I understood. The problem was not only that Emily stopped choosing me. The problem was that I stopped choosing myself. I had spent years waiting for someone else to recognize my worth. But how could I expect someone to value something I constantly gave away? That night, I went outside and walked through the empty streets. The air was cold. The city was quiet. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something I had forgotten. Peace. Not happiness. Not relief. Just peace. A small feeling. But real. I thought about the teachings of Epictetus. He believed that freedom begins when we stop being controlled by things outside our power. For years, I've been controlled by Emily's attention, her moods, her choices, her love, but none of those things belonged to me. The only thing I truly owned was my response, my dignity, my choices, my path. Still, I was not completely free, because there was one thing I had not faced yet, the truth about why I stayed. It was not only because I loved Emily. It was because I was afraid of who I would become without her. And soon, that fear would be tested. Because Emily was about to reveal something that would change everything I believed about our relationship. Something I never saw coming. There is a strange moment in life when the thing you fear the most becomes the thing that finally saves you. For years, I feared losing Emily. I feared waking up one day and realizing that the person I built my future around was no longer beside me. But I never considered another possibility. Maybe losing Emily was not the end of my life. Maybe it was the beginning of my own. Still, knowing something in your mind and accepting it in your heart are two different battles. My mind understood. My heart resisted. Because memories are powerful. They do not care about logic. They do not care about the pain that came after. They only remind you of the moments that made you stay. I remembered the first time Emily held my hand during a difficult day. I remember the night we laughed until sunrise. I remember the promises we made about growing old together. Those memories became chains. Beautiful chains, but chains nonetheless. And I was about to learn that sometimes the hardest person to forgive is not the person who hurt you. It is yourself, for allowing it to continue. A few days after our conversation, Emily asked me to meet her at the place where we first met, a small coffee shop downtown. The same place where she spilled coffee on my jacket and laughed for 10 minutes because she was embarrassed. The same place where I first thought, this woman might change my life. When I arrived, Emily was already sitting by the window. She looked nervous. That was unusual. Emily was rarely nervous. She was confident in almost every situation. But that day, she looked different. "Daniel," she said softly. I sat across from her. "Hi." For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then Emily took a deep breath. "I have been thinking." Those words immediately made me cautious, because over the years I learned that "I have been thinking" often came before another explanation, another excuse, another reason why I should understand. But this time, her voice was different. "I realize I hurt you." I looked at her. The old version of me would have immediately said, "No, you didn't." The old version of me would have protected her from the consequences of her own actions. But I stayed silent, and silence can reveal things words cannot. Emily continued, "I think I became too comfortable." I nodded slowly. "Comfortable with what?" She looked down. "With knowing you would always be there." The honesty surprised me, because that was exactly what I had been feeling. "I thought you would never leave," she said. "I know." "No, Daniel, I don't think you understand." She looked at me. "I really believed nothing I did would make you walk away." Her words were painful, but they were also freeing. Because sometimes the truth hurts less than the illusion we create to survive. "I loved you," I said. "I know." But somewhere along the way, I started loving you more than I respected myself. Emily became quiet, and for the first time, I saw sadness in her eyes. Not guilt, not fear. Sadness. "I don't want to lose you," she whispered. I looked outside the window. People were walking by, strangers living their own stories, each person carrying invisible battles. And I realized something. Everyone has a moment where they must choose between comfort and growth. Mine had arrived. "Emily," I said. "Yes." "Do you want me because you love me?" She looked confused. "What do you mean? Or do you want me because you are afraid of life without me?" She did not answer, and that silence answered for her. The truth is painful because it removes our excuses. For years, I blamed Emily for making me feel unimportant, but I had to accept my own responsibility. I stayed. I returned. I accepted, not because Emily forced me, because I was afraid. Afraid that nobody else would love me. Afraid that starting over would be harder than staying broken. Afraid that my best years were already behind me. But fear is a terrible reason to remain somewhere. A person who stays because they are afraid is not choosing love. They are choosing safety. And safety is not always peace. After that meeting, things became complicated. Emily tried harder. She called more. She apologized more. She wanted to prove she could change. And part of me wanted to believe her. I really did. Because despite everything, I still loved her. But love creates a dangerous temptation. It makes us focus on who someone could become instead of who they are today. I started watching her actions carefully, not her promises, her actions, because words are easy when someone fears losing something. But consistent change requires sacrifice. For a while, things improved. Emily became more present. She asked about my feelings. She started noticing the small things she used to ignore. And I thought maybe we had reached a turning point. Maybe this was a chapter where everything finally became better. But life has a way of testing whether you truly learned a lesson. One evening, Emily received a phone call. She walked into another room to answer it. Normally, I would have followed. Normally, I would have asked who it was. Normally, my anxiety would have controlled me. But this time, I stayed where I was. Not because I did not care. Because I was learning not to let fear control my actions. A few minutes later, Emily returned. Her expression had changed. "Daniel," she said, "what happened?" She sat down slowly. "I need to tell you something." My heart became heavy, because I knew that tone. The tone people use when they are about to reveal something they know will hurt you. "What is it?" She looked away. "It is about the last few months." I waited. I wasn't completely honest with you. The room felt smaller. "What does that mean?" Emily took a deep breath. There was someone else. For a moment, everything stopped. The sound of the clock, the noise outside, even my own thoughts. I stared at her. "Someone else." She quickly responded. "Daniel, it wasn't what you think." Those words, those 5 words, they were the words everyone says when the truth is already painful. What was it then? She struggled to answer. I was confused. I laughed quietly, not because it was funny, because sometimes pain becomes so deep that your body does not know how else to react. Confused? Yes. While I was trying to save us. She looked down. "I never wanted to hurt you." I nodded, and strangely, I believed her. That was the hardest part, because sometimes people hurt us without being evil. Sometimes they hurt us because they're lost. But understanding someone's reasons does not mean accepting their actions. I stood up. Emily looked at me. "Daniel, please don't leave." Those words would have destroyed me months ago. But now, they sounded different. Before I heard, "She still needs me." Now I heard, "She is afraid of the consequences." And there was a difference. I picked up my jacket. "I need time." "Are you ending this?" I looked at the woman I once believed I could never live without, and for the first time, I did not feel anger. I did not feel hatred. I felt sadness, because I realized I was not losing the person I loved. I was accepting that the person I loved had been gone for a long time. "I don't know," I said, "but I know I cannot keep abandoning myself." That night, I walked away. Not forever, not completely, but far enough to finally hear my own voice. And what I heard scared me, because beneath all the pain, there was a person I had forgotten, a person who had dreams before Emily, a person who had value before Emily, a person who could survive without Emily. But I did not know yet that the biggest twist of my journey was still waiting, because the truth about Emily was only half of the story. The other half was the truth about me. The night I walked away from Emily, I thought the hardest pain would be losing her. I was wrong. The hardest pain was sitting alone in my apartment and realizing how much of myself I had abandoned while trying to keep someone else. The silence was different now. Before, silence felt like loneliness. Now, silence felt like a mirror. And mirrors are uncomfortable because they show us things we spend years avoiding. For the first few days, I struggled. I would wake up and instinctively reach for my phone. Not because I wanted to talk to Emily, because my mind was still searching for the familiar, a message from her, a missed call, a sign that everything could go back to the way it was. But every morning, I had to remind myself of something painful. Missing someone does not mean they belong in your life. Sometimes you miss a person because they were part of your routine. Sometimes you miss a memory, not reality. I started taking long walks after work. No music, no distractions. Just me and my thoughts. At first, my mind attacked me. It replayed every moment with Emily, every laugh, every promise, every mistake. I kept asking myself the same questions. Was I not enough? Could I have done something differently? Was there something I missed? But slowly, another voice started appearing. A quieter voice, a wiser voice. The voice I had ignored for years. It asked a different question. Why did you believe losing someone else meant losing yourself? That question changed everything, because I finally understood something. My biggest mistake was not loving Emily. My biggest mistake was believing love required me to disappear. I began reading philosophy again, the same books I had forgotten while trying to fix my relationship. I returned to the teachings of Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus, not because I wanted to become emotionless, but because I wanted to understand my emotions. The Stoics never taught that we should not feel pain. They taught that pain does not have to control us. There is a difference. A broken heart can teach you. A broken heart can destroy you. The difference is whether you allow suffering to become your identity. For the first time in years, I started rebuilding my own life. I joined a small gym. I started painting again. I reconnected with old friends. Things I had stopped doing because Emily did not enjoy them. Little by little, I started meeting Daniel again, the person I was before I became someone who only existed for another person. Then, 3 months after leaving, I received a message from Emily. Can we talk? I stared at those 3 words for a long time. The old Daniel would have replied instantly. The old Daniel would have felt relief. He would have thought, she finally needs me. But I was not that person anymore. I waited. I thought. I asked myself, am I responding because I want peace or because I want validation? That question protected me. The next day, I agreed to meet her. We sat in the same park where we used to spend Sunday afternoons. The same place where we made plans for a future that never arrived. Emily looked different. Not physically. Something deeper. She looked tired. I miss you, she said. I nodded. I miss you too. Her eyes became emotional. I thought you would come back. I looked at her. There it was. The sentence that explained everything. Not, I thought I would lose you. Not, I realized how much you meant to me. But I thought you would come back. She was not surprised by my absence. She was surprised by my strength. I waited, she continued. I thought after a few weeks you would realize you couldn't leave. I stayed quiet, because there was no anger left inside me, only understanding. Emily, I said, do you know what hurt me the most? She looked at me. It wasn't what happened. She lowered her eyes. It was believing I was only valuable when I was giving you something. She started crying. I was wrong. I believed her, and that was another lesson I learned. Forgiveness does not require you to return. You can forgive someone and still choose distance. You can understand someone and still protect yourself. Emily wiped her tears. I have changed. I looked at her carefully. Maybe she had. Maybe she truly had. People can grow. People can learn. People can become better. But another truth exists. Someone becoming better does not erase what happened, and it does not create an obligation for you to stay. I am happy you changed, I said. She looked surprised. But I needed you to change while I was beside you. The words were difficult to say, but they were honest, and I needed to learn something too. What? That love is not measured by how much pain you can tolerate. Emily looked away. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she asked the question I knew was coming. Do you still love me? I took a deep breath, because the answer was complicated. Yes. Her eyes filled with hope, but I continued. But loving you is not enough anymore. The hope disappeared, and I saw the sadness return. I wish things were different. So do I? Then why can't we try again? I looked at the trees moving in the wind, because nature understands something humans often forget. Everything changes. Every season ends. Every chapter closes. Every river eventually finds a new path. Because I spent years trying to prove I was worth choosing. I looked back at her, and now I finally know I don't need to prove that. That was the moment I realized I had truly changed. Not when I left. Not when I stopped calling. Not when I ignored my feelings. I changed when I no longer needed Emily to understand my value. The greatest freedom is not when someone stops hurting you. The greatest freedom is when their actions no longer decide your worth. But then Emily said something that I never expected. Something that changed how I looked at our entire relationship. Daniel, there's something else you need to know. I looked at her. What? She hesitated. I never believed you would leave because I watched you do the same thing my whole life. I frowned. What do you mean? She took a deep breath. You always stayed. I remained silent. My father walked away from my family when I was young. After that, I became afraid of being abandoned. I listened carefully. And when I met you, you were the first person who stayed no matter what. Her voice became softer. I thought your staying meant you would never leave. The realization hit me. Emily's actions were not only about me. They came from her own wounds, her own fears, her own past. But then she said something even more surprising. Maybe I kept testing if you would leave because deep down, I didn't believe anyone could stay. I sat there quietly because suddenly I understood something important. Two wounded people had found each other. I was afraid of being abandoned. She was afraid of being abandoned. And instead of healing each other, we created a cycle where both of us kept proving our fears were true. That was the twist I never saw coming. Emily was not the only person who needed to change. I did too. I needed to stop begging someone to choose me. She needed to stop believing love was something people had to constantly prove. But understanding the reason behind our pain did not mean we had to continue living inside it. Sometimes two people can love each other and still be wrong for each other. That night, I said goodbye to Emily, not with anger, not with revenge, with gratitude, because even though she broke my heart, she also forced me to find myself. As I walked away, I realized something. I had spent years trying to make Emily afraid of losing me, but the real victory was becoming someone who was no longer afraid of losing her. And for the first time, I knew I could keep walking. Months passed after my final conversation with Emily. At first, I expected some dramatic transformation. I thought one morning I would wake up and suddenly feel completely healed. But healing does not happen like that. It happens quietly, almost invisibly. One day, you notice you did not check your phone, hoping for a message. One day, you walk past a place that once caused pain and realize you can remember it without breaking. One day, you hear someone's name and feel nothing but peace. That is how you know you are free. Not when you forget, but when remembering no longer controls you. I continued building my life. Not a perfect life, a real one. I learned to enjoy my own company. I learned that eating dinner alone does not mean you are lonely. I learned that silence is not always an empty room. Sometimes silence is where you finally meet. There was a time when I believed being alone meant something was missing. Now I understood something different. Being alone can be the place where you stop searching for someone else to complete you, because no person can complete another person. Two incomplete people do not become whole by holding on to each other. They only create a deeper emptiness. I finally understood what the Stoics had been trying to teach for centuries. Your peace cannot depend on something you cannot control. You cannot control who stays. You cannot control who leaves. You cannot control who changes. But you can control the person you become after they do. That was my greatest lesson. For years, I thought Emily leaving would destroy me. But the truth was different. What destroyed me was not losing Emily. What destroyed me was losing myself while trying to keep her. 1 year after our final goodbye, I saw Emily again. It was unexpected. A small bookstore downtown. The same kind of place where we once spent hours talking about dreams. She noticed me first. For a moment, we both stood there silently. Two people who once thought they would grow old together. Two people who became strangers. Then Emily smiled. Daniel. Emily. There was no anger, no bitterness. Just two people remembering a chapter of their lives. How have you been? She asked. I smiled. Better. She nodded. I can see that. We talked for a few minutes. She told me she had started therapy. She told me she was learning to understand herself. She told me she finally realized how much damage fear had caused in her life. And I was genuinely happy for her, because forgiveness had changed something inside me. I no longer needed Emily to suffer for me to feel healed. I no longer needed her regret to prove that I mattered. My worth was no longer waiting for someone else's apology. Before we left, Emily looked at me. I want you to know something. What? You were the kindest person I ever knew. I looked down, because a younger version of me would have held on to those words forever. He would have thought, she finally sees me. But I was different now. I did not need to be seen by everyone. I only needed to see myself. Thank you, I said. She smiled sadly. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we tried again? I thought about the question. A year ago, that question would have destroyed me. Now, it simply made me reflect. I think we would have loved each other. She looked surprised. Then why wouldn't it work? Because love was never our biggest problem. What was? I looked at her. We were both trying to heal wounds that only we could heal ourselves. The truth is, sometimes people enter our lives to stay, and sometimes people enter our lives to teach us. Emily was both. She gave me beautiful memories, and she gave me painful lessons. But the most important lesson she gave me was one I never expected. She taught me that love without self-respect becomes suffering. She taught me that forgiveness without boundaries becomes self-destruction. And she taught me that walking away is not always giving up. Sometimes walking away is the final act of courage. After we said goodbye, I walked through the city, the same streets where I once felt lost, the same streets where I once wondered if I would ever be okay. But everything looked different, not because the world changed, because I changed. I finally understood something Marcus Aurelius wrote about human nature. We suffer not only because of what happens to us. We suffer because of the meaning we attach to what happens. I once believed Emily leaving meant I was not enough. Now I knew something else. Someone leaving does not reduce your value. Someone failing to appreciate you does not make you less worthy. A closed door does not mean you are unwanted. Sometimes it means you are being redirected toward yourself. The strongest people are not those who never experience heartbreak. The strongest people are those who experience heartbreak and refuse to let it make them bitter. They choose wisdom over revenge. They choose peace over obsession. They choose growth over repeating the same pain. I used to think strength meant holding on no matter what. I thought loyalty meant staying through every storm. But I learned something deeper. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is release what is hurting you, not because you stopped caring, because you finally started caring about yourself. The world will often teach you to chase. Chase love, chase approval, chase people who walk away. But the Stoics understood something most people forget. What belongs to you will not require you to destroy yourself to keep it. Your peace belongs to you. Your dignity belongs to you. Your choices belong to you. Protect them. Because when you lose everything outside yourself, the only thing you truly have left is who you are. And that is the person you should never abandon. The person who stayed awake during your darkest nights. The person who carried your pain. The person who kept going when nobody noticed. Yourself. So if someone walks away from your life, let them. Do not beg someone to stay where they no longer choose you. Do not chase someone who only values you when you are leaving. Do not sacrifice your soul just to keep a place in someone else's heart. Because the greatest victory is not making someone regret losing you. The greatest victory is reaching a place where you no longer need them to regret it. The day I stopped waiting for someone to choose me was the day I finally chose myself. And sometimes the person you have to walk away from is the person you were before. The person who accepted less. The person who begged for love. The person who forgot his own worth. That person helped you survive. But now, it is time to let him rest. Thank you for watching. If this story connected with you, remember that your peace is your responsibility. Protect it, value it, and never trade it for temporary comfort. Subscribe for more stories about Stoic wisdom, personal growth, and the lessons that transform pain into strength.